This is a wolf. It can run 60 kilometers per hour, bring down an elk alone, and survive a Russian winter with no shelter. It is one of the most successful predators in the history of the planet. This is a pug. It cannot breathe properly. It overheats in mild weather. It sometimes needs surgery just to sleep without suffocating. Its skull is so compressed that its brain pushes against the bone. We made the pug, on purpose, from the wolf. This is the story of how humans took the most efficient predator in the Northern Hemisphere and, over thousands of years, turned it into an animal that struggles to exist. And why we keep doing it. Before dogs, there were only wolves. And wolves were not friendly. They were apex predators, territorial, suspicious of everything outside the pack, built entirely for killing and surviving. No other large predator has ever been successfully domesticated. Lions, tigers, bears, humans have tried. It never worked, not really. But wolves were different. Not because they were gentle, because they were smart enough to calculate risk and reward. Around 15,000 years ago, some studies suggest even earlier, closer to 40,000, something shifted. Certain wolves began following human hunting groups, not to attack, to scavenge. Humans were messy. They left scraps. They abandoned campsites full of bones and leftover meat. For a wolf willing to tolerate the smell of humans, this was an opportunity. The wolves that came closest got the most food. The wolves that ran away got nothing. Over generations, the bolder wolves survived better. The fearful ones didn't pass that boldness on. Slowly, without any human plan, wolves began self-selecting toward tolerance of humans. Sound familiar? The cats did the same thing. But dogs went much further. At some point, the relationship changed from tolerance to cooperation. Wolves that stayed near human camps offered something useful. They barked at threats. They helped track prey. They could smell things humans couldn't. Humans who kept wolves nearby survived slightly better. Humans who drove them away lost that advantage. Neither species planned this. It happened because it worked for both. This is the oldest interspecies alliance on Earth. Older than farming. Older than cities. Older than writing. By the time humans invented agriculture, dogs already existed. They had been with us through the entire prehistoric period. The DNA evidence is unambiguous. Dogs are not tamed wolves. They are a separate species, Canis lupus familiaris, that diverged from wolves and co-evolved alongside humans for thousands of years. Their brains changed. Their faces changed. Their behavior changed. Dogs developed the ability to read human facial expressions. Wolves cannot do this. Even wolves raised by humans from birth struggle to follow a human pointing gesture. Dogs do it instinctively. They evolved to understand us specifically. For most of history, dogs bred naturally. Humans kept them. Dogs that were more useful survived better. A rough natural selection continued inside domestication. Then humans started making deliberate choices. Faster dogs for hunting. Stronger dogs for protection. Smaller dogs to flush prey from burrows. Dogs with sensitive noses for tracking. Dogs that could herd sheep without being told. Every region developed different dogs for different purposes. These were working animals. Their bodies were shaped by function. A greyhound is built to run. A border collie is built to think. A Saint Bernard is built to survive cold and carry weight. A Dachshund is built to fit inside a badger hole. Every shape had a reason. Every trait existed because it helped the dog do a job. This lasted thousands of years, and then something changed. In the mid-1800s, dog breeding became a hobby for wealthy Europeans, particularly in Britain. The first official dog show was held in 1859 in Newcastle. Within decades, kennel clubs formed, breed standards were written, and dogs became status symbols and aesthetic objects rather than working animals. For the first time in the history of the species, dogs were being bred not for what they could do, but for how they looked. And humans, it turns out, have very specific preferences. We like flat faces, we like large eyes, we like small bodies, we like features that resemble human infants. This is not an accident. Biologists call it neoteny, the retention of juvenile features into adulthood. Baby animals trigger a caregiving response in humans. Flat faces, big eyes, round heads, small noses. Evolution gave us this instinct to protect our own children. The Victorian breeding programs accidentally discovered they could hijack it. The rounder the face, the more people wanted the dog. The flatter the nose, the cuter it seemed. The bigger the eyes, the more irresistible. Nobody asked whether the dog could breathe. The pug did not start this way. Pugs originated in ancient China, probably around 2,000 years ago. They were kept by emperors. They were a compact, sturdy, functional companion dog. Their faces were flat by breed standard, but not extreme. When pugs arrived in Europe in the 16th century via Dutch traders, they became fashionable. Royal families kept them. They spread across aristocratic Europe. Then Victorian breeders got involved. The original pug had a moderate flat face. The Victorian ideal pushed it further, then further, then further still. Every generation, the flattest-faced pugs were selected for breeding. Every generation, the skull got shorter, the nose got smaller, the eyes got larger and more prominent. The breed standard rewarded compression. Judges at dog shows selected for the most extreme features. Breeders competed to produce the flattest face. Nobody stopped to ask what was happening inside the skull. What was happening was this. The same amount of biological material, teeth, soft tissue, eyes, was being compressed into a smaller and smaller space. The soft palate thickened. The nostrils narrowed. The trachea thinned. The result is a dog that spends its entire life partially suffocating. The medical term is brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome. BOAS. It affects pugs, French bulldogs, English bulldogs, Shih Tzus, Pekingese, and dozens of other flat-faced breeds. These dogs cannot cool themselves efficiently. They cannot exercise without risk. Many cannot give birth naturally because the puppies' heads are too large for the birth canal. They require cesarean sections to reproduce. We bred an animal that cannot reproduce without human surgical intervention. The pug is not an isolated case. The Dachshund's elongated spine causes chronic back problems in the majority of the breed. The German Shepherd's sloped hindquarters, a feature introduced in the 20th century, causes hip dysplasia at epidemic rates. Charles Spaniel's skull is frequently too small for its own brain, causing a condition called syringomyelia. Fluid-filled cavities form in the spinal cord from the pressure. These are not rare health problems. They are built into the breed standard. The features humans selected for are the source of the suffering. The show dog world has known this for decades. Veterinary organizations have published warnings. Countries have passed laws restricting the breeding of extreme morphologies. And yet the breeds remain popular. French bulldogs are currently one of the most owned dogs on the planet. A wolf looked at a human campfire 15,000 years ago and made a calculation. Proximity to humans meant food. Food meant survival. The wolves that stayed passed their genes forward. That decision, made by an animal across thousands of generations, produced the dog. Every dog. The border collie and the sled dog and the search and rescue animal and the guide dog. And the pug. The wolf that walked toward the fire had no way to know where it would end. We do. The dog gave us 15,000 years of loyalty, work, and companionship. It co-evolved with us. It learned to read our faces. It changed its own brain to understand us better. What we gave back in the last 150 years was a skull too small for its own brain. That is not an accusation. It is just the record. The question is what we do with it. From apex predator to best friend. From best friend to animal that needs surgery to breathe. We did that on purpose from a wolf.